The SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, founded in 1911, is now the only institution of higher learning in the United States dedicated solely to the study of natural resources and the environment. Hello and welcome to this edition of Improve Your World with SUNY-ESF. I'm Dave White. In today's program, we talk mostly about the Adirondacks. We have stories on the Hudson River, air quality and forest research in Huntington Forest, preventing erosion of a mountain trail, and using vacant urban space to build community. We start with a quick profile of the Adirondack Ecological Center. Pristine forest and up close with wildlife. The 6,000-hectare Huntington Wildlife Forest contains both undisturbed natural communities and managed forest stands. It's an important component of the SUNY-ESF research facilities at the Adirondack Ecological Center, which provides the science that underpins the management of the Adirondack Park as one of the world's foremost experiments in conservation and sustainability. Scientists and science teachers like this group on a tour of northern hardwood forest come from throughout the U.S. and the world, using the AEC as a base of operations for research seeking to understand the natural ecosystems of the northern forest.
When you first do a clear cut, you get somewhere between 30,000 and 50,000 stem density. By about 40 years, that's down to about 1,000 stems. That's 30,000 to 50,000 stems per acre after a harvest. That's the surge of regeneration you get. By about 40 years later, that's down to about 1,000 stems per acre.
While the primary mission of the AEC is to support research, there's an active instructional program that includes annual short courses, workshops for teachers and secondary science students, and the Huntington Lecture Series, which emphasizes the natural history and ecology of the Adirondacks. Next, an example of how the AEC is used. A group of educators and environmentalists gathered to talk about the Hudson River Watershed. The Hudson River stretches from the Adirondack Mountains to New York City. It's a much different looking river the higher you go into the mountains.
We know that there are a lot of researchers in various parts of this watershed, and that if you look at my screen over here, you can see that this is actually pieces of the Hudson watershed that were taken off of the DEC website. And the DEC actually administers the Hudson in these three parts: the upper Hudson, the lower Hudson, and the Mohawk drainage. And it seems sort of balkanized that way when in fact we know that this is a whole functional watershed, and it should be studied as, at least in some contexts, as a whole system.
We tried to gather many partners from state agencies, other academic institutions. There are a number of research organizations. There are a lot of nonprofits along the Hudson River that focus on different parts of it, the estuary, for example. We thought that it would be a really great opportunity to bring everyone together and talk about how we could partner in terms of making education programs. There are a couple of really great examples of source-to-sink education classes that take a week or several days to move down the Hudson and talk about different issues. But there is a lot of opportunity for us to do more collaboration, and ESF is in a unique position to try to bring more awareness of what's going on in the upper Hudson and how that relates to what's going on downstream.
So we are looking at some of the headwaters of the Hudson, and we're interested in using this type of information to provide an overall picture of how different parts of the landscape contribute to the water chemistry of the Hudson. We are using this stream to look at how changes in atmospheric deposition, changes in acid rain, changes in the climate, how this affects the stream's hydrology, as well as the chemical responses of the stream. And we're also looking at the water going out of the lake so we can also look at how the lake itself affects some of these processes. And we also can link this to some biological changes in the lake as well as biological changes within the stream and associated terrestrial system, the trees and the soils around the stream. Arbutus Lake is a relatively productive lake. It's not a low pH lake, and we've seen changes within the chemistry. We see overall improvements within the chemistry over the lake associated with decreasing amounts of acid rain inputs.
And so you've got New York City down here, and if things are not going well up in the upper part of the watershed, New York will suffer, and these cities here will suffer. We know, for example, that back in the late 1800s and the early part of the 20th century, that the logging, the timbering in the upper Hudson, the clear cutting and so on, affected the ability of the upper Hudson to provide water, sufficient fresh water to go down the estuary. And so cities like Poughkeepsie, which take their drinking water, were affected by that. So we know that preserving the forests up in the north has a tremendous effect on the freshwater supplies.
The cast net system is a dry deposition network, and it's based upon filter packs which are collected once a week on Monday, and they're sent to a central analytical lab. They also analyze for ozone within the cast net system as well. When they did the comparisons of things like here versus in Washington, D.C., in terms of how much corrosion was occurring, there's actually more corrosion that occurs up here than in these more highly pollutant environments. And it's been suggested has to do with, because of the frequency of rain up here, we don't have a lot of dry periods. So it's continual. On average, it rains here every other day. The data is analyzed, and then it's sent to I think it's probably another operation that actually compiles all the data.
And we're talking about how we often think of ourselves as in a place, a town, or maybe a county, a region like the Adirondacks, but we don't tend to think of ourselves on a watershed scale. And yet the Hudson River is one of the most important rivers to the founding of our country. This was remarkably, even though there were really no roads to get here, people found it useful enough to come up to extract iron out of these rocks. The site that we're on is part of a former mine site that was active and inactive for going on 200 years.
And the way that you pour is you have a central channel that comes out and then a whole bunch of side channels off of that. No, that was a sifting box. So this whole right here, this whole area would have been a bed of sand. And there's actually there's a foundation corner there and a foundation corner over there of where the casting house would have stood over us. And again, whenever the iron's ready to pour, bring it down the central channel and then it comes off. And what it looks like is, if you picture this, this might be a sow pig, and then all of these little things off her would be suckling. So they're called pigs of iron. That's the origin of the pigs of iron. And this is one of the iron pigs. I mean, this thing is really heavy.
They just cast pigs and ship it out of here like that.
Right, exactly. I mean, this is solid iron. And it's when Roosevelt was here in 1901 that McKinley was assassinated, and he went to Buffalo. This is actually from the New York Times, and it's from the day before they found him, and it's talking about not knowing where the president is. So here we go. When the vice president receives news, he will move south as rapidly as possible to North Creek. So what's interesting about this is that the nation knows that McKinley is dying and that the vice president is going to become the president, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really fascinating. It used to be trees to make charcoal and build buildings, and ore to extract from a mineral resource context, and now the forest is a recreational resource. And this winds up working into the conversation about public policy. How do we decide what types of recreation happen where, who makes the decisions, who gets a voice, how are the voices equal? These are all conversations that we can really engage up here as we look at talking about the Hudson River in the context of broader conversations.
I think it was quite a successful start. It was a small group that actually came, but I think we had all the right components there. I think that the people who came had a chance to talk to each other and meet each other and see what was going on. I think we did turn on a few lights in dark rooms, so that was good. And we hope to continue this next year.
Coming up next, a rehabilitation project that brings a bygone era back to life.
One of the two most commonly used tools is the hammer. Hammers are used to drive nails, brads, anchors, and assorted other fasteners into a variety of materials like wood, gypsum, wallboard, and masonry. The most common is the claw hammer, pounding them in on one side and pulling them out on the other. The claw hammer can also be used as a pry bar. Choose a size and style that's comfortable and easy to handle. You don't want it slipping out of your hand. Ball peen hammers are used for shaping metals and closing rivets. It's not a safe substitute for driving nails. Sledgehammers are used for larger jobs, such as driving fence posts or breaking up concrete. A joiner's mallet, an all-wood hammer, usually made of beech, is used for tapping wood joints together or driving chisels. Hammers produce fine debris, so you should always wear protective clothing and safety glasses.
This is Huntington Lodge, which is the core of the what was called the Mossy Camp when it was built. Durant built the Mossy Camp in about 1898, sold it to Archer Huntington in 1899. And the Mossy Camp originally comprised the dining building over here, which is now called Arbutus Lodge. There was a number of guest buildings up on the knoll here above us, a number of facilities up and down the hill here, and then Huntington Lodge was added later, again, sometime between 1911 and 1915. The effort that we've put into Huntington Lodge over the last 16 to 18 months has been to completely renovate the character of the building.
To all our partners, we salute you for all you've done, and we salute what we're going to do together in the future. Cheers. Cheers.
As you look around the architectural embellishments, that it followed Durant's designs almost perfectly. So we have a very high level of faith that Durant was involved in some capacity. So this building, when it was turned over to the college in 1939, the college dismantled the other 2/3 of this building. So this room that we're standing in, the trophy room, is the only remaining original part of this structure. Once you go past that wall, everything else was reconstructed in 1939. And what we have done over the last 18 months, so 16 months, is renovate the other half of the building, the 1940 half of the building, to bring it up to a level of reflection of this room. These very simple shelf points all the way around, these are all straight out of Durant. If you go to any other camps, if you go to Sagamore, if you go to Pine Knot, these elements are there. The same with the peeled log roof, that's all there. The mitered interior log, this is actually one of Durant's innovations in a way to reflect the log cabin aesthetic, but actually not have it be log cabin. If you look at it, you understand immediately that it's actually a stick-built structure with overlapped logs to make it look as though you're in a log cabin. And this was, to a great degree, the origins of the idea of a log cabin as a sophisticated home rather than something that you escape from. But what's interesting is that Archer Huntington actually wasn't a hunter. So where you have other camps where the trophies that were displayed on the walls were often the successful achievements of the individuals who owned those buildings, those homes, these actually were purchased. There's some pottery that you'll notice on some of the upper shelves. Archer and Anna Huntington, Anna was a sculptress, an artist, a lover of the arts, and Archer collected pottery, and there's a number of original pieces of pottery that are in the home that they collected during their lifetime and that have been preserved here over time. If you look up at the second floor, when the college rebuilt the windows, they rebuilt the building, they preserved the original windows, which provided light to the interior for the Huntingtons. And it never had a second floor. The building was a single-story structure, but those windows provided light in the interior. Those are the original Durant divided pane windows. We had replaced, all of the downstairs windows had been replaced with vinyl-clad aluminum. So we went back and had handmade windows. Actually, Gary Peden, who's involved on campus, developed a relationship with us with a craftsman, an Amish craftsman, who hand-built every single one of the new windows you see on the first floor. So the kitchen windows were replaced. We enlarged and put in the windows here in the living room, and then all the way around the entire porch, extended the window line and created a tremendous amount of light inside that was not there previously. So we've really brightened the interior of the building. Now, the power of this structure for us is that Anna and Archer Huntington were passionate about the Adirondacks and about wilderness and about wildlife. And they wanted to make sure that individuals had access to this as a learning experience, to the 15,000 acres that they had accumulated over their occupancy here over about 3 or 4 decades. And they wanted to make sure that this provided a place from which students could learn, increase their understanding about wildlife, about forestry, and then share that information from research and through education to increase the level of information and ability with which we manage resources throughout the Adirondacks. And it was their insight and their vision in creating this property that they donated to the college that this building served as the center of. This is where students would stay, this is where the directors lived in different periods, and we are once again recapturing this to make it a wonderful place to stay, to make it the central core of an experience here at Huntington that can be for small meetings, that will support the carriage house, the stone carriage house with conference center, which is going to be we're going to be working on next, and to provide the exquisite but also appropriate and comfortable housing now that you've seen with the Stickley furniture inside and the complete renovation, where people will be comfortable staying, where it will give them the I guess the comfort and the intellectual space to bring to high-level meetings, to bring to educational experiences that will then provide just a remarkable experience to take home and to bring the Adirondacks, as we say, bring the Adirondacks to science and science to the Adirondacks.
One of the 2 most commonly used tools is a screwdriver. Screwdrivers are made to drive specific types and sizes of screws. This is the flathead screwdriver. The flat blade varies in size, which is selected based on the size of the screw slot. The closer the match, the easier it is to tighten the screw. The Phillips head screwdriver is designed to be used with screws with an X-shaped slot. Again, the closer the match, the easier it is to tighten the screw. Which screw to use? The Phillips head screw is designed for the application of extra torque, so it provides a tighter fit. Use it when tightness is critical. The Allen key or Allen wrench, a hexagon-shaped screwdriver, is often used to put together furniture. It's often L-shaped. Power screwdrivers come in 2 forms. One is a socket driver approach that can be used with power drills. Many drills have special speed settings for driving screws. The second is a standalone cordless electric or power screwdriver.
Near Huntington Lodge is Goodnow Mountain, with a public trail that leads to some very scenic views and an old fire tower. But trails like this need maintenance.
My name is Dan Raymond, coach of the ESF soccer team. If you guys could have a little cheer in the background, please. All right. We are here doing some trail maintenance on this beautiful day. Headed up to Mount Goodnow.
They are trying as hard as possible to get the water off the trail to prevent erosion and further damage to the trail. So we have rakes and shovels and fire rakes, and we are clearing the path so that the water is able to run freely.
You'll notice here towards the end of the bar, you've gotten a buildup of dirt. What we need to do is clear some of this dirt out. You can either use a fire rake to do it, or a shovel, or a grub hoe. You'll notice not only do we need to clear the dirt out here, we also have to make some place for the water to run when it gets off the trail. This one isn't too bad because we've got enough of a hill here.
The trail is not always in the best shape right around now. With all the leaves having fallen down, they're getting in the way and preventing the water from draining off. You can see there's a ditch right in front of me, and all of the water that has been sitting on the trail for the past few months is now draining freely off of it, and so that's much better for the integrity of the trail to keep it not as muddy so that people aren't eroding the trail as much. When trails get muddy, people tend to create their own trails around the mud, so we're trying to prevent that.
Basically, we're going to dig with ease.
Last time I did that, we like to have students come up and get involved with our programs up here and to see the property. And it's good for them to do service projects.
It's part of our community service, trying to give back to the school a little bit and everybody that supports us. And I think this is a great way, really enjoying it out here anyways.
They learn about what needs to be done in order to maintain trails, particularly in this area. We're in the Adirondack, so it's, thousands of miles of trails around, and so they understand what goes into keeping those maintained.
I want it to be more of a holistic experience than just soccer, because the team atmosphere, the team experience is something that permeates your life experience, work, etc. So, anyways, we got to get back to work. We're on the clock here.
Finally, we move from mountains and forests into the city. In this project, an evolving Syracuse City neighborhood wanted something to bring their community together. A gathering space, a place for respite in the summer heat or on a busy day. That's next.
Power drills are handy tools, but they can hurt you if you're not careful. Make sure the drill is at a proper angle for the hole you need. And don't push too hard. That makes the drill bit wear out faster. Use the right drill bit for the materials. There are drill bits designed for wood, metals, concrete, and masonry. Keep your hand away from the trigger when tightening the drill bit in place. Many fingers have been damaged this way. Even drilling wood can heat up the drill bit, so let it cool before removing it. If you like the mobility of a battery-operated drill, the better the battery, the longer it will operate. But that may mean a bigger battery that's heavier to lug around. So make sure it's fully charged before using it. And finally, always wear your safety glasses. A tiny piece of debris will feel like a boulder if it gets caught in your eye.
Welcome and thank you so much for coming out in the rain here today. We're sorry we couldn't control the weather better, but it's a testament to how much hard work this has taken that you all would come out and still support it. We really appreciate you being here. This was a great dream that started several years ago. Franciscan Friar Phil Kelly and his friend Ty Shaw, who's a great leader in our Northside community, the two of them had a dream for this space, which once used to be occupied by two abandoned homes where drugs were dealt, crimes were taking place, and they saw something different. They saw a place where all the different cultures and peoples in our neighborhood could come together, interact, a place that would speak to peace and to the freedom that so many people who come to this country and to this neighborhood seek.
Friar Phil Kelly, who was here as a Franciscan, contacted Neil Murphy and said he had this idea on the north side.
I came and met Friar Kelly and a couple of people from the Vietnamese community because they were kind of the initial community members who were involved in the design of the park, and we talked about different ways that ESF could help out, and at that point I said, well, let's see if there's a studio that might be able to help with the design process, and that was Cheryl Goebel. And so it was her studio that did the initial design studies and worked with the community to develop the design.
Maren worked with Friar Phil and his committee for about a year, and then at that point we actually got a group of students in a studio. So for a semester there were about 7 undergraduate students that worked here on the north side with the community members through a series of workshops to develop the initial concept designs for the park.
At first we weren't sure about how much enthusiasm we were going to get from the Vietnamese community. And then we had the first workshop, and it was unbelievable how excited everyone was about
about really designing something important on this site. So the design was accepted on April 14th. We unveiled it to the Vietnamese community and their advisory board, and they seem to really like it. And so with that now behind us, we can move towards cost estimates and construction documents and a phasing plan to see what can happen first, and the funds that are raised right now, what can those funds be put in use for? And then after that, the big deal is going to be fundraising.
One of the things that was a thread through this was the community. So one of the things that has happened since the students graduated is that there's been a committee of about 10 or 11 community members that have been working with the Franciscan Collaboratory, with myself, to actually carry this forward.
Well, I'm an alumni of ESF, and 2 or 3 years ago I got a call from Cheryl and Richard Hawks regarding this project. Our offices are blocks away, and I was very interested because being an alumni and knowing the work that Cheryl has done with the community classes, we wanted to get involved. And so we've been involved since the start of it and working with the students. And I think the exciting part about it is that the students were allowed to design the space, get interaction from the local community, and then we're able to take those concepts and make it real.
Well, a couple years ago, some other students, before actually my time here at ESF, designed this project and worked with the community to develop a design for it. And this year, things kind of fell into place and things were getting constructed, so I helped out with planting some of the shrubs around here after the construction company did the concrete.
The experience I think that students gain from doing something like this is invaluable, that you don't learn from a classroom, because it's taking the design ideas and putting it to work and actually having students come out, interact with the community, and in some cases actually help to build and construct. We had students that actually helped to do some of the planting. And so there's a real application involved that can go beyond the classroom into the workforce. And that's, I think, one of the exciting things about a project like this.
This is actually going to break ground, and this is actually going to go through. So it was a big deal to us. Yeah, but that only made us more and more excited and got the energy flowing for those long design nights.
And while we may not have done all the ideas, the basics are there for the form and the textures and the planning for the future. So we're very excited, and we're happy that the park is open today.
That's all for this edition of Improve Your World with SUNY-ESF. I'm Dave White, and I hope you'll join us again next time.